chapter 6. Last week, Kevin Pettis taught, and he explained a bit about the Ark of the Covenant, that there was irreverence in not obeying the way it was supposed to be moved. And you remember when he said, it doesn't say it here, but there's no mention that David inquired of the Lord. It doesn't say he didn't. Now, we're going to look at that a little deeper today in a minute, but clearly he did not inquire of the Lord. And I'll go the next step and say he didn't know he was doing it wrong. So is David one that reads the Bible and studies it? Yeah, but he didn't know it all yet. And so we'll be looking at that in a minute, because I think it really plays into today's lesson as we continue in the book. We talked about the anger that David had. It said that he was angry with God for how God handled it when Uzzah reached out and took a hold of the ark and died. In fact, let's just read it so that for those that weren't here, let me give you the context. I'm going to read starting at verse 1 and go to verse 8. And we're going to quickly talk about some things, and then we're going to go from 9 to the end of the chapter today. Verse 1, David again brought together all the able young men of Israel, 30,000. He and all his men went to Baalah in Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the name the ark of the Lord Almighty, who is enthroned between the cherubim on the ark. By the way, little sneak preview. Gila knows where I'm going with this. Sunday sermon from Revelation chapter 11 that we're in. It's the seventh trumpet. And it says that when the trumpet blew, heaven opened, and you could see the ark of the covenant in heaven there. And so I'm going to answer on Sunday how that relates to what you're looking at right here. You guys are going to get more out of it Sunday than others because you're here tonight, even though I'm not going to tell you about Revelation tonight. And we're going to answer how the ark got there. What's it doing up there? So we'll answer that question. Cliffhanger. See you Sunday, if you can make it, and if you're not dealing with children, and if you are, watch the video. All right, anyway, verse 3. They set the ark of God on a new cart. Not any old rickety thing. They got this new one, special made, and brought it from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. Uzzah and Ahio, sons of Abinadab, were guiding the new cart with the ark of God on it. And Ahio was walking in front of it, and David and all Israel were celebrating with all their might before the Lord, with castanets and harps and lyres and timbrels and sistrums and cymbals. Did it sound like they came prepared to worship and celebrate this? Think they had a right attitude? Or do you think they were arrogant? What do you think? They were excited. Like, they went all out. They wanted God to know how excited they were to be putting that ark on a cart and bringing it home. Verse 6, when they came to the threshing floor of Nakon, Uzzah reached out and took hold of the ark of God because the oxen stumbled. Would he have reached out and touched it if the ark hadn't stumbled? No, he's going to let it go. The Lord's anger burned against Uzzah because of his irreverent act. Therefore, God struck him down, and he died there beside the ark of God. Then David was angry because the Lord's wrath had broken out against Uzzah. And to this day, that place is called Perez Uzzah. David was afraid of the Lord that day. All right, so what's David's problem now? Why is he mad? Well, because God struck Uzzah, but keep going. Is he just mad that some guy died? Yeah, what a wet blanket, right? Here we are celebrating you, and you do this? But there's even more than that. What's going on in David's mind? Yeah. He's like, I just put my best foot forward, and God rejected it. What were you going to say, Jeff? Yeah, what do I do with it now? Like, I thought I was doing the right thing. You ever feel that way where you think you're doing the right thing and then it's just not going well and you feel like you're displeasing God and you go, I just throw my hands up, I give up, I don't know what to do. Man, I tell you what, if Christians are more honest, they'll say that's how they feel often. And the answer is going to be tonight on what to do with that. I want to make sure I don't get ahead of myself because I'm already close to getting ahead of myself. I want to read these notes real quick that I wrote last night and this morning. I think there's something going on here where God is establishing David's kingship and is very particular about how he does it. And we're going to see that really true as we go through the rest of this chapter. David completed all the things Saul and the Benjamites failed to complete. That's, if you've been coming on Wednesday nights, you know what I'm talking about. Did Saul and the Benjamites, what did they do with the Amalekites? What did Saul do with the Amalekites? That goes all the way back to the very first move of Saul as king, and they were told, kill them all and kill the animals. What did Saul do? He left them alive and took some of the best for himself. What did David do at the same time that Saul was in battle, being killed in his battle against the Philistines? Who was David fighting? The Amalekites. And he wiped them out and finished that job. And that's given to us in the story. Then what we looked at last week, and the week before, because Kevin taught last week, the week before was David becomes king, and what's the first city he takes? Jerusalem. Because since the beginning, it was supposed to be theirs, and the Jebusites took it, and nobody could take it. The Benjamites were supposed to get it. They didn't take it. Joshua didn't take it. Saul, the whole time he was king, they never got Jerusalem. And so that the Jebusites even thought, even David, he's a great warrior, but this is like locked in. And so David goes in, and what's he do? He takes control of Jerusalem, starts to turn it into the city of David, also the city of God. Well, now what we've got is the next thing that David does is says, now I want to bring the ark out of hiding and bring it back out where, where it's going to be in the city of God and in the tent, the tabernacle that they're making for it. So again, where was this ark the whole time Saul was king? Sitting in this guy's house waiting. You see what I'm saying? David is finishing all the things Saul was supposed to do and never did. Why did Saul not do anything he was supposed to do? What was he focused on? Himself. When you're focused on yourself, you're not going to get done the things God wants you to do. And so the ark represented the presence of God, both figuratively and literally. He was there. In fact, what we just read, where does God sit? I love the way it doesn't just say he sits present between the cherubim. He is what? Enthroned. What does that mean? Kingship, rulership. He rules from there. Don't forget that. Keep that in your mind. Saul never used the ark. It was in the home of Abinadab for 20 years, the whole 20 years that Saul and Ishbosheth ruled. There was one time back in 1 Samuel 14:18 that there's discrepancy of what the manuscripts actually says. In the NIV, it says that he said, go get the ark. But in other manuscripts, it says, go get the ephod. Both are used to get the Lord's direction. But regardless, and if it was the ark, that's the only time Saul ever asked for it. But before, whether it was the ephod or the ark, before they went to get whatever it was, they said, oh, wait, the Philistines are already attacking. He's like, well, then forget that. Let's just go. And off they went. So he never used the ark the whole time he was king that we are aware of at all. There's good evidence to say he never did. So what's David going to do? He's going to go get the ark.
So, I'm going to ask this question.
Sure.
What is the ark?
Okay, the ark is that box. It was described how it was made. It's about this big, and it had two poles that went through for him to carry it. And then on the top of that, it had the two cherubim with the wings that touched in the middle, and then it was gold-plated. God had him make this, and inside they put the Ten Commandments. There was a time that Aaron's staff that budded and some manna was in there. And then there was a time that those ended up missing, and it was just the law of God in there. We looked at that a couple weeks ago. No, that's fine. Good question. I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you feel comfortable to ask that. But it demonstrated the presence of God. And they had rules when he had Moses build it. Said, now, when you move it, because it represents my presence, never put it on a cart. Only carry it with people on these poles. It's got to be hand carried, and had all these rules about doing it and where it goes in the most holy place in the tabernacle. And then there were certain times when they would go out to battle that God had them take the ark and lead with it, because that demonstrated the presence of God leading, enthroned there, leading the army, and they never lost when that was the case. Gila. Yeah, and it said if you touch it, you die. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should. You'll enjoy, if you do a little bit of reading and studying on that, you'll find it interesting, because when the Philistines, one time they took the ark, well, they did not go, I don't remember, I don't think they went with the ark, but they fought the Philistines. The Philistines captured them and stole the ark. And when the Philistines got the ark, they said, this is supposed to be their God, and they took it to their god, temple of Dagon, and they put it inside that temple to say Dagon's bigger than their God. When they got up in the morning, the big idol of Dagon had fallen face down and smashed. And so they'd move it. Then everybody in that town got sick. So they moved it to another town, and everybody in that town got sick. They moved it to, finally he said, this is killing us, send it back to Israel. You know.
They do wrong here. They said you put it on a cart.
They weren't supposed to do that.
Which his name got struck.
Yeah, Uzzah touched it and died because he wasn't supposed to touch it. All right. So now.
They had seen it. It was on a cart. The Philistines sent it back
On a cart, right? And so it might have been on that old cart, and they said, oh, let's get a new cart, you know. And here they are thinking they're going all out. We're going to put the newest, best Lamborghini cart, and we're going to have all the musicians out there, and you know. And we'll get to that we're so close. But anyway, my point is, I want us to understand that a lot of these details are here to show us the contrast between David and Saul. Saul did not inquire of the Lord, did not obey the Lord, did not seek the Lord. He sought things for himself, and he gained nothing. Even when he had the kingship and he had money and he had things, he was never happy with it because it was not what God wanted for him. David, on the other hand, seeks the Lord first and enjoys his kingship. And so now let's continue on. This is really neat. Verse 9, David was afraid of the Lord that day and said, how can the ark of the Lord ever come to me? He didn't know what happened. He didn't know what went wrong at this point. And I'll show you why in a minute why I say that. And he's thinking, if I did my best and my best wasn't good enough, then it can never happen. Who does he think is at fault that the ark can't come to him? He thinks it's God. Who's he angry with? He's angry with God. Because he's saying, I did my best, and if God won't accept what I did, I'm out. Do you see him feeling that way? The problem, he's thinking, I can't do it, when the reality was he didn't know how God wanted him to do it. Think about that for a moment, because a lot of times we think what God is asking of me is impossible. Well, maybe it only feels that way because you don't know what he's really asking you to do yet. How do you find out? Now, wait a minute. Would God really hold us accountable for something in here that we don't know? Yes. Whether you know it's a sin or not, sin is sin. It is worse when you know it's a sin and do it anyway, because then you add to it the sin of rebellion. But it's still wrong if you do what's wrong. Does that make sense? And watch how this plays out, because there's one of two ways you can deal with this. Now, I want to leave your finger there. We're going to come back to 2 Samuel, but I want you to go forward a little bit after 1 and 2 Kings. Then we're going to hit 1 Chronicles. And I want you to go to 1 Chronicles and chapter 15. Now, what Chronicles, 1 and 2 Chronicles are, is a restatement of things that happened through 1, 2 Samuel, 1, 2 Kings. It's a retelling, sometimes with more details, sometimes brushed over some things, but it's the same stories of what we're going through right now. In 1 Corinthians 15, let's start in verse 12. I'm sorry, 1 Chronicles. What did I just say? Man, listen to what I mean, not what I say. So I'm glad you guys caught me. 1 Chronicles, thank you. 1 Chronicles 15, starting in verse 12. He said to them, you are the heads of the Levitical families. You and your fellow Levites are to consecrate yourselves and bring up the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel, to the place I have prepared for it. This is the second time. He's about to talk about what happened the first time, okay? This is discussing when they did it right. Who's he talking to do it right? The Levites. Verse 13, it was because of you, the Levites, it was because you, the Levites, did not bring it up the first time that the Lord our God broke out in anger against us. We did not inquire of him about how to do it in the prescribed way. What did they not look into the first time? How does God want us to do it? They just assumed we can find our own way to do it. God is sometimes less concerned with the goal as he is our process to the goal. Sometimes we look at it and say, but God wants that out of us, so I can find my most convenient way to get that done. And he's like, no, you're missing the whole point. It's not that I want you there as much as I give you the goal so that you can work the process to get there, because I can teach you along the way in the process. If God's goal for us was simply heaven, then the moment you get saved, boom, Why the process of the rest of this life? Because we will learn so much more through the process than even the goal. And so that's what's happening here. David realized it wasn't just about getting the ark to the tabernacle. It was about doing it in the way God wanted so that it keeps him in charge and it shows our submission, our humility, our obedience, our reverence. And so now he's learned that. So let's keep reading. Verse 13, it was because you, the Israelites, did not bring it up the first time that the Lord our God broke out in anger against us. We did not inquire of him about how to do it in the prescribed way. Verse 14, so the priest and the Levites consecrated themselves in order to bring up the ark of the Lord, the God of Israel. So it wasn't just that the Levites could do it, but the Levites had to go through ceremonies to prepare themselves to be consecrated to do it. So there's a lot more that David was thinking, right? Keep going, verse 15. And the Levites carried the ark of God with poles on their shoulders as Moses had commanded in accordance with the word of the Lord. So why did Moses tell them to do it? Because God told him to do it. So God told Moses, Moses wrote it down, David didn't read it. Came up with his own plan. So what's not here for us right now? What's not in the text that we know happened between first time and second time? What's that, Lori? Well, Uzzah died, but what did happen? Somehow David figures out where he went wrong. Right? You know, that's not told, we're not told of that part, but they didn't know. All of a sudden, we're not making the same mistake because now we know. So when David, last we left him in 2 Samuel, he's a little frustrated, right? He's frustrated, but then he gets up and says, this has to happen though. Or somebody comes to David and says, oh, King David, your servant has a word of encouragement for you. You blew it. Can I show you something? Here's what Moses said. Yeah. Well, probably, Dave, I tried to tell you, but you weren't listening. You're too busy making your own plans. You know, we don't know exactly how it went down, but you get the idea. And so this is about to get even better. Verse 16. So David told the leaders of the Levites to appoint their fellow Levites as musicians to make a joyful sound with music, instruments, lyres, harps, and cymbals. So is he still going all out with the music and the worship and everything else? You better believe it. But this time, and Levites, I want the Levites flooding this thing. Because I'm not making the same mistake twice. And there's what's that?
Try to make them like the yellow tape.
Yeah, the yellow guardian tape, like, you know, watch out for this. Do not cross this line. In verse 17, so the Levites appointed Haman, son of Joel, and from his relatives, Asaph, son of Berechiah, and from their relatives, the Merarites, Ethan, son of the Cushiah, and with them, their relatives next in rank, Zechariah, Jeziel, Shemirath, Jehiel, Uni, Eliab, Benaiah. This is hard, but I'm doing this for a reason. Watch this. Maaseiah, Mattathiah, Eliphal. I'm glad I'm American with English names like Steve, Bob, Micniah, and here it is. What's the next name? Obed-Edom. Does that sound familiar? Hang on to your hat. Obed-Edom. Oh, let me finish. And Jael, what's the word? Gatekeepers. Now, I did a little bit of study on the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers would kind of be like the homeroom teacher and lawyer at the same time. They're the ones that know all the rules and make sure you follow them. They're the ones that would literally guard gates. There's a north, south, east, and west gate, and make sure people are following the rules to go in and out of the gates. Yeah. And it's like if, Kathy was telling me a little bit, she did some study on that today because she likes to know what I'm going to study, and then she studies. And Obed-Edom was at the south gate, right? But there were rules. If you came in the south gate, then you had to go out the north gate for traffic flow. Or if you came in the north gate, you had to go out the south gate. So they had this stuff. So gatekeepers would stand there. No, you came in this gate. You got to go out the other way. Well, can't I go out this way? No, the rule says. Does that tell you what kind of person Obed-Edom is? All right. Let's go back to 2 Samuel. Look at verse 9 is what I just read, and David is upset, and how can the ark ever come to me? Now we're in 2 Samuel 6, verse 10. He was not willing to take the ark of the Lord to be with him in the city of David. Instead, he took it to the house of Obed-Edom. Does that name sound familiar? Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite for 3 months, and the Lord blessed him and his entire household. It is easy to assume, and rightfully so to a degree, that they chose the home of Obed-Edom because of proximity. Not far away, like just get this thing in. Who can take this? Obed-Edom says, I can handle this. Bring it to my house. Do you think Obed-Edom treated it properly? Oh, yeah. Yep. I know the rules. Should have asked me. Does Obed-Edom show any fear? But wait, that just killed Uzzah. I don't want that at my house. Why is he so confident? That's right. He knows the rules. He's like, this is not God's fault. God is not the bad guy here. Uzzah was. Exactly. And he's the one inquiring and talking to the Lord and knows stuff. Now, here's what's interesting. To a Jew, this is going to raise some eyebrows at first because he's a Gittite, meaning he's from Gath. Who else is from Gath? Goliath is from Gath. And so you kind of go, ooh, he's what? Who is this guy? And it raises some eyebrows. But we find out that though he lives in Gath and is a Gittite, he is a Levite because he's chosen. The Levites were to choose from among their fellow Levites who were gatekeepers. And so we've got probably a marginalized, you're a Gittite, you stay over there. And he's like, okay, but I'll do my job. And wonder why everybody else doesn't take this more seriously. I would say he's probably the guy that frustrates everybody else, but he's the guy that's right. You ever meet those kind of people?
What's the difference between a Levite and
All right, a Gittite means he's from Gath. And so that's a location, just like Jesus of Nazareth. It talks about his birthplace, not his birth race. The fact that he's Levite shows that he's from the tribe of Levi. Aaron would be the father of that, and then the Levites are, in order to be a priest, you had to be a Levite. And if we go back and look at the 12 tribes, all of them that were there, they all got portioned land except the Levites. Why did the Levites not get any land portioned to them? This is simple. Yeah, if they got land as a tribe, there would be no priests in the rest of Israel. And so it was, just a second, Gila. So the idea was that they didn't get land, but each of the other tribes were to portion part of their land and take care of the Levites and give their tithes and stuff to them to take care of them so they could take care of everybody else. Yes, Gila? Oh, that's what you're going to say? Okay. Sure. Mm-hmm.
And one of them was Gath Rimmon.
Okay.
And so it's possible that it wasn't the Philistine city of Gath, but it was the Gath.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that because I've read several articles today that all pointed to that as the same place, but you might be right. I don't know.
I don't know that there's a way to know, but there is another option.
Yep. Good. Let me see, where do I want to pick this back up? I want to make sure I'm not skipping over something I wanted to say. Let me just... So it seems like where God had this happen would be right near Obed-Edom's house, where somebody who knew what to do would be there. And isn't that just like God to do that? If you're actually willing to listen and looking for help, God will provide. It's that providence. You remember how we define providence? It's the miracle that looks normal. It's where God takes the normal and turns it into a miracle. In other words, is it a miracle that the cart broke down near Obed-Edom's house? Is that a miracle? No, it could just happen.
Supposed to be carrying it anyway.
Right.
The providence is like saying, that's a crazy coincidence. Wait, that's a crazy coincidence too. And it all led me to this point.
Yeah, and if all those crazy coincidences didn't happen, another way to put providence is it's God's orchestration of normal life to do the miraculous.
So David took this, it said he was afraid of the Lord and asked how the Lord could come to me, that he wasn't willing to take it to the city of David.
Yeah, he's not willing to because I tried and it didn't work. And at that point, he didn't know how.
Not willing?
Well, he wasn't willing because he didn't know what to do.
Well, I think he was not willing also because he could see that they were punished for something.
Yeah.
And so he kind of like handed it off to Obed-Edom. And then later, the next verse says, someone came to tell David that Obed-Edom and his household was being blessed.
Yes.
Then he came to take it back.
Yep. Yeah. And he's like, so let's get to that part now. So verse 12 now. Now King David was told, the Lord has blessed the household of Obed-Edom and everything he has because of the ark of God. So last David knew because of the ark of God, somebody died. He thought he was doing the right thing, but he wasn't. And so now he's thinking God's blessing, God's presence is not going to be with us. And somebody comes and says, no, Dave. Over the last 3 months, nobody over there is getting hurt by that thing. In fact, he's being blessed. Now, wouldn't it be I thought about this. Wouldn't it be cool to be Obed-Edom? Like, for it to happen in a way that people go, oh my goodness, he's being blessed because of the ark. It's not like, oh, things just smoothed out. It's like nothing goes wrong. Everything goes extremely right. And there have been times in my life where I have to look at several different things and say, the only excuse for that is that God was blessing me. That is not rational, that things turned out that well. When we were church planting in Indiana, and I was making $400 a month from the church, it's all they could afford, and so I was working odd jobs to try to make ends meet, and it took miracle after miracle after miracle. And just to be there. And my grandmother passed away, and she left us $10,000. And that would have lasted me about 5 months if I'd have lived off that. And Gil and I prayed about it, said, that's not what we want to do. So we took like $6,000, put it down on a house, used $4,000 to fix it up, and we were going to try to sell it for a profit. And we thought we're not going to live on that money. It's going to be investment money because we need to start getting ready for retirement. And this was years ago. The last couple of days we were there fixing it up, this Hispanic family, a Mexican family, was driving around picking up flyers from other houses that were for sale. We didn't even have a for sale sign up yet. And I flagged them down and said, "You looking for a house?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, this one's going to go on the market, but we haven't even got a realtor yet. We can save some money if you're interested." They came in, looked at it, said, "We want it." They were pre-approved from the bank for twice as much of a mortgage than what this house would be. Got to a couple days before closing, and they called us up crying and said the bank refused them because they owned a Mexican restaurant that was doing great. That's why they got approved for so much. But it was their first, just finished their first year. They had 1 year of taxes. And they said, the bank won't loan us money till we have 2 years of taxes. We're stuck. I said, "I'll tell you what." I said, let me research. And I came back with a lease with an option to buy. And I was going to make $20,000 on the sale of that house, profit. But instead, well, no, I still made $20,000. We locked in the price, but they rented with a lease option that actually paid the mortgage and us $1,000 a month for the next year. So that $1,000 a month that came in is how God provided for us to stay there. And at the end of that year, we closed on the deal and we made the $20,000, took the $30,000 and invested in another house. I had real estate agents come to me, "How'd you do that?" I'm like, "Well, it's not me. That was God's blessing." You see what I'm saying? Like, there's just no way. It was too good. And it's things like that cause us to not be worried when things look difficult, because God is always there in a very real way. So that's kind of what's happening here. His whole family is being blessed for 3 months. And why wouldn't he be afraid to let the ark go? Like, when he heard David was coming for it, why would that not bother him? I mean, isn't it great to have it there? Would you want to let it go? If you were Obed-Edom, would you want to let it go?
Well, no, but he knows it's not where it belongs.
Aha. Why is it blessing him? Because he's doing with it what's right. And what would be right is when David said, "I want it there." And watch how he words this, how it's worded, because he is not blessed by the ark, but because of the ark. Who's he blessed by? God. And if God is going to bless him for treating the ark right, do you think those blessings could continue once the ark is where it belongs? Sure it could. See, because it's not the ark. It's the attitude towards the things of God that bring the blessing. So let's look at that starting in verse 12. Now King David was told the Lord had blessed the household of Obed-Edom and everything he has because of the ark of God. And you see it, it's in there twice to make sure you see it. King David was told Obed-Edom is blessed by the ark? No. What does it say? Who's blessing him? It says it right there. The Lord has blessed the household of Obed-Edom because of the ark. Very clear. So David went to bring up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. It's like, okay, God's not mad. We just have to figure out how to do it right. And I believe that when this person came and told David, God's still happy. We just got to do this right. That David said, all right, let's find out how to do it right. And he got the Levites together, inquired of the Lord as to how it's to be done, obeyed the law of Moses, everything changes. How do you think David felt when somebody said, Dave, it's right here. Look, this is how we're supposed to move it. And he went, in that moment, how do you think he felt? Like, well, that's not a big deal. Why did God, now he knew I was trying. Is that the right attitude? I think it's just really like, yes, now we can unlock it. We get it now.
He done it wrong.
Exactly. Cain and Abel both brought sacrifices to the Lord. God accepted Abel's, but not Cain's. If Cain would have said, oh, now I get it, that's what you want? Okay. Wouldn't life have been different? But instead he's like, no, I want to worship God my way. What a fool. David doesn't do that. David says, oh, that's what you want from me? I learned. Good. And this is why David falls in love with the principles of God's word. Because it shows why it didn't work before. Instead of getting mad at God, he realizes this is my weakness for not knowing. And once you know that, and you know that God is holding you to the rules of this book, whether you know them or not, and it's not going the way you want, can you see where unlocking the truths of this might just be encouraging? Is this making sense? And that's why that's where our love of the Bible comes from. Let's keep going. This is great. So David, I'm halfway through, what verse is that, 12? So David went to bring up the ark of God from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. Verse 13. When those who were carrying the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, he sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf. Every 6 steps.
Did you find out how big of a distance that was? Like how many times he would have had to sacrifice?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
That'd be interesting. But I put in my notes, I have no idea how long it took them to get it there. It's a lot of meat. But here's the thing. There is an imperfect present tense verb happening, which, let me explain that. Imperfect means it's not done yet. Present tense means it's happening when? Right now. If it's right now and it's happening, but it's not done yet, it's an imperfect present tense verb means it's ongoing. Okay? And the reason for 6, what's the number of completion? 7. So to do 6 and say, we're not done yet, and sacrifice to do it again. And they go 6 more and say, but we're not done yet. And it was a way of saying, Lord, we're not done until we fully fulfill what you want from us. There is an act of worship. That is a very visual way for the whole community, and they would have understood it being Jews, that this is a way of giving God everything.
And the 2 things that they're sacrificing are the atonement sacrifice and the fellowship offering.
There's beauty in that. That you could have atonement and fellowship at the same time. Think about that. I'm forgiven. Not only am I forgiven, but now I'm in right fellowship.
Did they do the same thing when they crossed the Jordan?
When they crossed the Jordan, they did not every 6 steps, but they did sacrifice and things there. Yeah. They didn't do this as they crossed the desert. And they didn't do this every time they moved the ark. But they did it this time as they were bringing it back to more of a permanent resting place. Jess?
So I just looked it up, and it says it was about 12 to 15 kilometers, so about 30,000 steps. So it would have either been 5,000 sacrifices, which would have been 10,000 sacrifices if they would have done an ox and a calf.
Right.
So it says no pun intended, but holy cow.
Well, it's like in First Chronicles, it says 7 bulls and 7 rams.
In where?
First Chronicles 15,
Oh, so they did more than those two?
it says 7 bulls and 7 rams were sacrificed.
At each step, or where's that? What's that? The reference?
First Chronicles 15, 26.
1 Chronicles 15. Because I know that there's more that happens. Like once they get there, they pass out food to every Israelite that's there. We'll get to that in a moment. So let me. Yeah, they had plenty of meat to go with it all. I think that's what they did too, blowing the trumpets, the ark of God. Obed-Edom and Jen were also the doorkeepers for the ark. So Obed-Edom got to bring the ark up from his place. What a cool, like I can't wait to be meeting some of these guys. So David and the elders of Israel and the commanders of units and thousands went to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord, rejoicing because God had helped the Levites who were carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord. All right, so it looks like, verse 26, because God had helped the Levites who were carrying the ark, so that's in the process of it, was working, that 7 bulls and 7 rams were sacrificed. And then it continues the story. Now David was clothed in a robe of fine linen, as were all the Levites who were carrying the ark, and as the musicians and Kenaniah, who was in charge of the singing of the choirs. Wouldn't that have been beautiful? Oh, man. David also wore a linen ephod, so all Israel brought up the ark of the covenant of the Lord with shouts, with the sounding of ram's horns and trumpets and cymbals and the playing of lyres and harps. And as the ark of the covenant of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window, and when she saw King David dancing and celebrating, she despised him in her heart. We're going to talk about that here just briefly from 2 Samuel. So it looks like every 6 steps they had these 2 sacrifices, but as they entered the city and everybody's celebrating, and it worked, that they did these other sacrifices, the 7 and 7, to show completion, probably as they came into the city to say, it worked, here we are. Ah! Can you imagine it was not only that they got the ark there, but they got the ark there the right way, knowing the wrong way was disastrous. It's like reassurance you did the right thing. That just had to feel so good. All right, so David's joy, and I just read it from Chronicles, but here in verses 14 and 15, it goes through the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Wearing a linen ephod, David was dancing before the Lord with all his might, while he and all Israel were bringing up the ark of the Lord with shouts and the sound of trumpets. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, this is verse 16, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. And when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. Why was she mad at him? It tells us right here why. She's going to give a different excuse in a minute, but why is she mad at him? Because he's dancing and celebrating before the Lord. And I think this is really key. When you do the right thing, not everybody's always going to be as happy as you are. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You got family members that are not happy when you do the right thing. Note. Right.
And so she looks at what he's doing as beneath him.
So she does, and I mean, there's without question that's true. But I'm gonna take this a little deeper for a moment. How is she described? She is the wife of the king. How is she described? Daughter of Saul. There is still the comparison being made between David and Saul. And you'll see this very clearly in just a moment. She's the daughter of Saul, not the wife of David, even though she is the wife of David. So it is not mere genealogy, but theology that's being talked about here. Remember, she was David's first wife, but was given to somebody else by Saul. Remember when David ran to the wilderness, Saul gave her to somebody else who loved her. And when she was given back to David, because she was David's wife, the man chased him down and said, I want my wife back. And remember all that? Let's go back a little further. When she was married to David, and Saul sent the assassins to their house to kill David, how did she protect David? Who remembers? What's that? She did lie, but how'd she lie? She took a human-sized idol and hid it in the bed to look like a person. What does that tell you about her? She's an idolater. She's an idolatress. She has idol worship. And that's when in David's family. She was someone who was an idolatress and did not want to serve God. And that is the comparison between Saul's house and David's house. David's theological line is kingship submitting to God, while Saul's kingship was without submission. So Saul did not want to submit to to God, but David is submitting to God. So if it had been the wife of David, she might have, if she was submitting to God and not like her father, it probably would have called her the wife of David, saw it and was blessed, blah, 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 blah. But because she's acting like her father saw, it's linked with his family. And she is mad at what? That David is celebrating before the Lord. Mm-hmm.
Men and women, so why wasn't David like there? Obviously, we don't know, but
Yeah.
she could have been.
Yeah, she could have been down there celebrating, but she had no interest in the ark coming. This whole thing was against what she wanted. Look at verse 17. I'm going to try to finish this real quick. We're 2 minutes over, but we're almost done. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the Lord, probably those 7 that we read in 1 Chronicles. After he had finished sacrificing the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord Almighty. Then he gave a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins to each person in the whole crowd of Israelites, both men and women, and all the people went to their homes. Imagine the palace kitchens the day before. My goodness. By the way, Saul was all about taking. David's about giving. Again, the comparisons are just, they don't stop. Verse 20. When David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, how the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, going around half naked in full view of all the slave girls of his servants, as any vulgar fellow would. All right, so is that what David was doing? No, but she knew David would not like that description. This is what the devil does all the time. He takes what you're doing good and puts the worst spin on it so that you'll feel bad about it. David's too smart for that. David said to Michal, and this is how I know that it's all about Saul's house and the fact that she's still following her father's rule. Watch this. David said to Michal, it was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father. Are you seeing the family connection now? And why the story is here? Chose me rather than your father, or anyone from his house. Not even Jonathan. Nobody from his house. Jonathan was great, but he had this one bad thing about him. His dad was Saul. And I'm not letting that continue. And he's saying to her, you're just like your dad. Just so you know. Okay, watch this. when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. He knew that's what she was mad at. Had nothing to do with the slave women, had nothing to do with him being immodest, had everything to do, and David knew it, that she doesn't like me celebrating before the Lord. She's got her idols. Verse 22, I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. I don't care what they think. I'll make myself look ridiculous to me for God. But by these slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in honor. Whew. In other words, you can say what you want to about them. They respect me because of who I am and my love for God. Doesn't matter. They honor me more than you do, is what he's saying to her. Now watch this. And Michal, clarification here, daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death. Why do you think the Lord made her barren? Any child of hers would have been the offspring of Saul. She is like the last line of Saul almost here, and God says, I'm done with that. I'm done with it. I'm establishing a new king, and I'm closing that door. And even on the way out, instead of repenting, she showed rebellion. So, we finished chapter 6. Any other comments, questions about this? Did I miss anything, Kathy? Some stuff that you studied?
I won't take it.
Okay. Yeah, because we're 7 after. All right. We're done. Let's close in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this. And I do pray that you help us to walk out of here with the principles that we've discussed tonight, that we need to do things the way you want, not just the way we want. That when you seem or appear to us to not handle something correctly like David felt, that it's probably our fault. No, it is our fault and not yours. And if we would take the wisdom of David and pursue to find out what we're supposed to do and be like Abel instead of Cain, that we would have a different way about life. I pray you help us to search your scriptures daily for the principles to live by. In Jesus' name, amen.